It's just a few days away from the D-Day, come February 16th, this Saturday to be precise. Nigerians will once again be exercising their franchise in the presidential election. From all indications, Nigerians are expectant and stakeholders of the different political parties are anxious as they are busy ticking the last-minute boxes ahead of Election Day. Now, while the election euphoria permeates the entire nation, there is an underlying apprehension of how events will play out at the different polling units across the country. The worst fear expressed by the average voter is electoral violence and other offences. You would agree with me that this is a critical issue that must be addressed accordingly, which is why we are talking about it on the programme. The big question is, will the newly inaugurated election tribunal realistically address all the issues relating to electoral offences? What else needs to be done to checkmate electoral malpractices? We will attempt to answer these and other questions on the programme. And of course, I will have experts who will throw more light on the issues of electoral offences. We will do the introductions in just a moment. This is Nigeria Today, and I am Dennis Adigunloye. Welcome. And in the studio to discuss the topic dealing with electoral offences is Cynthia Mbamalu. She is the project director watching the vote of Yaga Africa. Welcome again to Nigeria Today.
Thank you.
Okay, and also with us in the studio is Suleiman Olawale Ibrahim, the Deputy Director Clearance, Complaints and Prosecution from the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Good evening, viewers.
All right. So thank you both for your kind attention appearing on Nigeria Today for us. Obviously, we're just a matter of days away now till the 2019 presidential election, and it's fair to say that we're at a fever pitch right now. Let me come to Cynthia first. What exactly would you say qualifies as an electoral offence?
Any act or omission that contravenes the provisions of the Electoral Act, and then some also the Constitution, because for the elections we have the legal framework, which includes the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the guidelines for elections produced by INEC. And this is the legal framework, and there are certain acts that are actions that are prohibited. So if any voter, party member, observer, or even INEC official is found wanting or security, then they will be in breach of those sections. So you have the Electoral Act that highlights specific actions that to do with either the buying and selling of the permanent voters card, which is a major offense in the Electoral Act. You also have things of destruction of properties on the special election day offenses. And then for the side of the electoral officials is also what they call the sections on the dereliction of duties, meaning that even the polling officials, depending on elections day, they are supposed to act within the law. And then you'd have specific penalties, punishment in the laws for those persons that would breach those provisions. And then for political parties also. So I know most times parties don't even understand that campaigns are to stop 24 hours to the election. So as at the day before the elections and on elections day, you're not supposed to have party agents even conducting any activity that's campaign related, because that is also in breach of the act. Then even giving monies or inducing voters to vote for a particular party, particular candidate, for the receiver, for the giver, or even the attempt to induce or procure people to participate by providing them with any financial benefit and all of that, what you call electoral bribery and corruption. Those are acts that are penalized by the Electoral Act and has strict punishment as high as 12 months imprisonment, and for some 2 years imprisonment or a fine of 500,000 naira. So you can imagine most times we have citizens don't actually understand that some actions are actually criminal, and that once arrest is done and prosecution is made, that they would actually be serving jail term or be paying a huge amount of fine, and most times the jail term is what is taken. And then for the polling officials, for ad hoc officials deployed too, because I know post 2015 even even the commission itself set up its own committee for all staff that were found, be them ad hoc officials that were found once at the point of administration of elections for the relation of duties, and they were sanctions. Some of them even lost their jobs, and then prosecution in the courts of law.
All right, let me bring in Suleiman. Cynthia has enumerated an all-encompassing electoral offences act. How would you say that this has been implemented over the years with regards to prosecutions of electoral offences? How well?
Well, thank you. Electoral offences are codified in the Electoral Act as well as in some portions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They are threats to credible elections, and the Independent National Electoral Commission has not been taking it lightly with electoral offenders. Over the years, in 2011, we recorded more than 215 electoral offences. Much was recorded from Anambra State. And today, we have recorded a lot of offenders prosecuted successfully in Kano State, in Lagos State, in Rivers State, and many other states in the southeast and in the north too. And I think it has drastically reduced. What we experienced in 2011 was not what we experienced in 2015. And now the thing is gradually reducing. And we believe that with the forthcoming 2019 general elections, a lot of people are now very convinced with the fact that they know they don't need to commit electoral offenses. There is need to allow credible elections to take place.
All right, so in your view, would you say that Nigerian politicians and security agencies play down the import or impact of electoral offenses on the nation?
Well, every stakeholders, especially the politicians and the electorates, are not left out in terms of electoral offenses. I will state clearly that even in states where electoral offenses are committed, politicians have influenced negatively the successful prosecution of electoral offenses. Like in some states, the Attorney General of a state can influence negative impact on prosecution of electoral offences, especially when the culprits are members of that political party. And you have the constitutional provisions which gives it an Attorney General that fiat not prosecute, despite the fact that it's an electoral offence. So without any exception, these are part of the challenges that the Commission has experienced over the years, which we believe that with electoral framework amendments, constitutional amendments, this thing will be addressed.
All right. Cynthia, in your view, would you concur with Suleiman's submissions that, let's say, since 2011, 2015, and coming up to the forthcoming elections, that we are seeing a significant reduction in electoral offences?
Well, I think
need to do more.
I think one, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with prosecution, and I wouldn't necessarily say decrease totally. I would look at different aspects. So, for instance, you see the trend of vote buying. We saw that increase with the recent off-cycle governorship elections post 2015, and you also look at watching the votes pre-election observation from November. We've been making reports of purchase of the permanent voters card ongoing in some states. Some are sold as high as 10,000, some as low as 2,000, 1,000 naira. Now, these are offenses that some citizens don't even know about. And then when you talk to some citizens about votes buying, they tell you, oh no, I'm just collecting money to go and vote. They don't know it's an offense. So we were in Osun and in Ekiti. In fact, for Ekiti, we did a special report on vote buying to see how that happened. And you'd go to some polling units in Ekiti. It was even so rampant that it was done brazenly without any form of shame. And it showed that there was that people didn't understand either that it's an offense or the will to even make arrest was not there. Although in Osun, INEC introduced the ban of use of phones at the voting booth. So the challenge with electoral offense is INEC cannot do everything. The Commission has a lot of work. Its mandate is so broad, and there's been a lot of advocacy for an Electoral Offences Commission for one, or a tribunal to try electoral offenses. Because what we see is on elections day, you don't expect INEC to stop the administration of elections to make arrests. You have the security agents. So most times security agents are a bit complacent because if they don't make arrest, then we can't prosecute. And if you don't prosecute, you can't deter such character or behavior. So that is where there is a huge challenge: prosecution, arrest, and prosecution of offenders. And then the member from the Electoral Commission just mentioned, Deputy Director, when it comes to the power of the AG, the power of not to prosecute, to continue or discontinue a matter in court. So we also have the challenge of the litigation process itself, the justice system itself. And if we don't have people penalized or parties even sanctioned for participating in an act that is in breach of the law, it will be difficult to deter such act or such action. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's reduced. I think there are some that you can say, like snatching of ballot box, for instance. There's a bit reduction in that if you look at the trend, and that was because of the introduction of the smart card reader, the use of the PVC. So it's sort of removed that. But when you take off one, you know the thing about political parties, as you are trying to amend or reform a system, they're looking for new ways to manipulate that. So that is why we are seeing new trends of vote buying. Before, we didn't have people selling their votes at polling unit like it was a commodity. So I think there are new forms of new trends in electoral offences that we didn't used to see before, and the challenge is basically arrest and prosecution. So
you'd agree that there would be the need for a stiffer legislative framework to, you know, check some of these loopholes. All right, Suleiman, the federal government recently inaugurated the election tribunal ahead of the general elections. How effective would you say this tribunal will be in terms of the likely or possible mass cases that may be required to be addressed and prosecuted? Do you think it's in their capability to be able to achieve this?
Well, the election tribunal that was recently inaugurated, I believe the members are very experienced, erudite members of the bench who I believe that are qualified and will be up to the expectation, deliver justice, and also expedite administration of justice in terms of election petition and many other proceedings that will arise out of the 2019 general elections.
All right, we'll continue our discussions shortly, but a break beckons. We'll take a break now, and after that, we'll continue our discussions.
The Nigerian Television Authority News 24 channel, an independent, all-round news station, offering you world-class news programs, documentaries, spotlights, promos, and information highlights. Take advantage of our network manager and advertise your interest groups and services with us. ATA News 24, first equals this digital broadcasting. You can reach us on channel 21 terrestrial TV and channel 101 on the StarTimes platform. For more inquiries, please call on 0803 379 0884. Join us today.
The program is Nigeria Today, and we're discussing dealing with electoral violence. And our guests, Cynthia Mbamalu and Suleiman Olawale Ibrahim, are here with us. Let's come back to Cynthia. Let's talk about civil societies and NGOs like your organization, YAGA. What are you doing to sensitize Nigerians on this issue of electoral violence in particular, and how it can be checked, and the responsibilities that the ordinary voter can imbibe to reduce to the barest minimum electoral violence?
I think for civil society, our role is to educate, create awareness amongst the people. And why we focus on awareness, because one, with awareness comes consciousness, and with consciousness comes the need to take action. And for us, citizens need to understand that everyone has a role to play when it comes to the elections, because if we do not take part, we could have people who would manipulate the process, and that would affect the power of our votes, which is the votes we go to cast on elections day. And what first just be educated, be informed on the role that you have to play as citizens. I know there are lots of voter education activities ongoing, different civil society. This is a period for both the use of traditional and social media to reach out to the citizens, reach out to the public. Beyond that is also the reports, the observation report. Like I had mentioned, we had pre-election observation ongoing in watching the vote from November, and we'll have the last report released before the elections. And what we do with that is, with observation on the trends, we like trends on voter inducement, trends on purchase of permanent voters card, trends on political campaigns that promote hate speech or promote physical and verbal violence. Those help build an early warning system and also help us make better recommendations to the Electoral Commission on what actions need to take, and it's also to the security. So those kinds of reports inform advocacies, they inform reforms in the electoral process. And then I think what is key is educating the populace. We can never say that enough. One citizen, one vote is important, but if you do not educate people to understand the importance of the vote, it's going to also affect the power of your vote. So take that responsibility to tell people that, oh, this is an offense, oh, this would create violence, oh, this would disrupt the process. And if it disrupts the process, all our efforts go to waste. If voters start understanding the fact that if you do not take part, your efforts go to waste, and then leaders that would emerge may not be leaders that won through a fair and credible process. So we also need to care about that process, so that when leaders emerge, we can claim, we can say yes, they emerge through a legitimate and credible process, and then we can hold them accountable. But when people are allowed to flout the laws, to break the rules, and they emerge as leaders, then they would not feel any sense of responsibility to the people, because they believe that, oh, we didn't play, it's not your vote that got me into power after all. We bought the votes, or we helped someone disrupt the process, and we let that, and you let that happen. So we need to understand how that affects our vote on elections day.
All right, so well, it's certainly Suleiman, voting according to your conscience has been pretty much a theme that has been resonating in recent weeks, and selling your vote is basically selling your future, especially with regards to the next 4 years. Let's talk about the politicians themselves now. They have a critical role to play in terms of imbibing this peaceful attitude among the Nigerian voter, but they've been reportedly fingered as inciting electoral violence in the past, of course, and how would you say this trend on the part of the politicians would need to be checked? What would you say to the politicians in terms of refraining from inciting violence?
Yes, I believe winning an election, politicians should not be desperate. I believe that a credible election should entail the stakeholders participating and allowing the electoral process to go naturally, unhindered. And I believe that the politicians and all other stakeholders have enormous role to play in making sure that we have a credible, peaceful, and free and fair elections. It's not INEC alone. It entails every stakeholders engaging in making sure that this forthcoming election is peaceful and credible. And the politicians have an enormous role to play in this regard.
Yeah, I understand former U.S. President Clinton and some other dignitaries are going to be in Nigeria on Wednesday for a peace accord between the presidential candidates to basically accept the results. How hopeful are you that this will play out as we all hope and expect?
I'm hopeful that basically the involvement of the international community is just to ensure that we have a peaceful and credible elections. And I believe that all the stakeholders will definitely take it in good faith that this one is a collective responsibility for everybody to experience this thing to happen, a credible election, a peaceful and free and fair elections.
Yeah, and same here. 4 years ago, we saw an unprecedented action by the then incumbent president, who led by example, if you like, and we're hoping that this will be the case again this time around.
Yeah, I think what is important is, as a nation, our democracy, we should be growing, and for political actors, what they need to focus on is how do we improve on our system, how do we make a statement that is positive, not just to Nigerians but to Africa, because you know Nigeria plays an important role in when it comes to the politics in Africa and beyond the continent. The world looks to Nigeria. You have there's a lot of focus on our election because of the strategic role we play, and I think what is important is for these elections that our political actors, our candidates and the party leaders, they have a role to encourage their supporters that even if you have grievances in the process, there is the court, so you have a legal means of channeling your grievances and waiting for the court to give its own ruling and decisions, because that is what a developed and a democratic society looks like. That while you'd have majority, while you'd have opposing and dissenting voices, that there are legal means and institutions established strictly to address these grievances. And I think what is important is the message of peace. Having the former president of the United States come to Nigeria, and then also the peace accord that would be signed, is also beyond that for citizens to see the need for peace. Why? Political stability is something that everyone benefits from. We do not want a nation that each time we are going to the polls there is a fear of violence. We need to grow beyond that. We need to be able to vote and rejoice with the winners, and hold those that are not part of the winning parties to also accept the result, and then to see how we move together to move forward. There would always be a winner in every game, even in football. And so if we can accept when we lose a match at a football game, why shouldn't we accept that when we talk about elections? So that is very critical, that our political parties, the candidates, they need to show that we're working towards peace, that we believe in national unity, and that regardless of the outcome, if we have grievances, we'll go to the courts, but that Nigeria needs to remain after the elections, because the message for these elections is elections about Nigerians. Without unity, without a united nation, a united country, we would not have a future. And I want to be able to wake up after the elections and go to work and have my daily activities continued. I want to be able to live freely, and I think every Nigerian should care about that.
And live in peace.
Yes.
Yeah, Suleiman, let's talk about the electoral officials. Would you say they're well equipped to tackle and manage electoral offences come the polling days?
The election officials are well equipped. They have been trained in all the states of the federation. Most especially the corpus, the major part of electoral officials, the ad hoc staff. They are well equipped with the training. They have the training manual, and they have also been trained to be courteous to members of society, members of the public, because they are representative of the commission in their respective polling units. And I believe with the training they have gathered for the past few days, I believe that they will deliver to the entire Nigerians.
All right, Cynthia, let me just give you the final word. Just briefly, what would be your advice to the voter come Saturday and obviously March the 2nd?
Guard your PVC. Do not sell your votes. Go and vote for your conscience. Vote for your choice. Remain at the polling unit to count the ballots, and then promote peace on elections day.
And just to re-emphasize, selling your voter's card is an offence, in case you were not fully aware. And as Cynthia and Suleiman have explained, there are a lot of offences that come under the Electoral Offences Act, and we hope that come Saturday and beyond, the process will be a peaceful, free and fair process. We have been discussing dealing with electoral violence, and I would like to thank our guests, Cynthia Mbamalu, who is the project director watching the votes from IAGA Africa, and Suleiman Olawale Ibrahim, the deputy director clearance, complaints and prosecution from the Independent National Electoral Commission. I'd like to thank you both for your insightful contributions to the program, and we wish everyone well come Saturday.
Thank you.
And to our esteemed viewer, thank you for staying with us, and remember, you can watch this edition and any other online on www NTAnews24/hub. My name is Dennis Adignoye. Remember, be peaceful and exercise your right to vote. Thanks for watching.